Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We are excited today, although I'm speaking in plural. It's just me and my guest. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. Things do not change. We change. Thoreau. Our guest today is a exemplar of the quote, friend to the Culture Matters podcast, a giver, a mile taker, an abundant soul. Someone's choking on their coffee right now. A coach, a mentor, a one of the best MCs probably in the greater Philadelphia area, if you're in the area or you're willing to invest to fly someone to your event, to integrate that medium, your message received. We have a podcast host here that actually runs a podcast, meaning they have more than 10 episodes. I could keep going. There's many
It's
decades
so
of
sweet and kind.
experience. Yeah,
I
well,
like
I'm not
all of it.
done. I'm not done.
Oh,
Decades of experience in sales and a staple to the Culture Matters podcast. John Duffin is back to talk about giving, philanthropy, what is giving, and so much more. So thanks for coming back on the Culture Matters podcast, my friend.
Jay, thanks for having me back, man. That's a great intro. You just made me abundantly happy, especially the little bit of a taker. It was a personal favorite of mine. A little bit, a lot, but anyway, sure. Um, I'm all in. Just great to be here, buddy.
We were talking before we hit record about about what is giving.
Mhm.
Are we having a conversation about philanthropy? Are there other what is philanthropy? Are there other forms of giving?
Mhm.
Just to start at the top, right? What are some forms of giving in your estimation?
So I think in this day and age, one of the reasons, like, giving can often take a negative term, which is funny because it's the last sort of a term you would think that would take a negative connotation. But sometimes when you are either well connected, even when you're not connected, if you're just going through social media and you're starting your day with a series of GoFundMe's, uh, my aunt, my uncle, my town, my school, my brother, and you go through a series. Now, the way I just described that would make me sound incredibly jaded. Uh, and cheapskate would be another kind way to say that, but it's not. What I'm saying is, and I still feel this way, which is I don't think anyone needs to be like convinced that giving is a good idea. It's obviously you begin with the premise that it's a great idea. And of course you're going to get back because you do. Anyone who's giving, that's almost like a universal truth now. That's the good news. That when you give, you will get back. You always do. So the sense of that being a part of a culture to me is obviously a big deal. I just look at it as I start to look at it as a little bit more of a selective process rather than a universal process of I need something, and then you're inclined to be like, okay, now I have to give you something. So I'm happy to start there in terms of the
Mm.
conversation, right?
How do you say no?
That's the question. So that's the reason sometimes to me, I've caught myself and recently, and you know this personally, putting my putting my guard up as if like some wall
John,
with some
John, 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 do you like kids? We have to just
Wait,
tell the
wait, wait.
audience
Give
a
the
little
premise.
bit.
But that's it.
Yeah.
It was even more coarse than that. It's like, well, unless John, of course, unless of course, if you don't like kids, then I'm like, what?
At some point, you have to unpack that story, but
I
go on,
will.
please.
But in terms of the going on,
How do you
which is
say
that
no?
we're in a business environment, a personal environment, but we'll focus on business today, where if you are and in an environment of two or more people. And the larger the organization, the bigger the web gets cast, right? That we need to give. Companies want to extend their culture. We are a culture of giving. I worked for a media company where we were offered the chance to have a portion of our pay taken for giving. Now, on the surface, that was great. Makes it easy. You know what I mean? It's like, well, of course, would you want 3%, 5%? However, I learned then, and that's where it kind of stays with me, which how do you say no? Uh, the short answer is the selectivity. Does it meet your values? Number one, personally. Two, does it meet your company's values? Is there any sort of reciprocity in the giving? And here's what I always mean. It does not mean they have to give you something back. It simply means, will it be appreciated? Can they demonstrate, the organizations that are getting the funds, can they demonstrate that the funds are going to a good purpose? Are they being managed well? Is somebody there managing the funds well? Because your intentions may be great from a company side, but are you managing the funds well? Is it going where they say they're going? You know, and I look at those things first. Where I started to put a wall up is I remember a company I worked with letting you know, here's who we're going to give the money to. And I always remember thinking, well, can I have some input rather than you telling me? And as I said, here's the part. How do you say no? Sometimes I was a lot in my life, I was a people pleaser. So I had a really hard time saying no. So I just gave. And then eventually, you've heard the old adage, give till it hurts.
Wow.
Well, it started to hurt. So it's like, well, wait a minute. If 35 people a day all need something, you start to put a wall up. So I've become more selective. I suggest that companies keep in mind that individuals are getting besieged with charitable requests. So that's why I always believe the company that you work with, and especially if it's your own, instill why you think this organization is a good idea. And it goes right back to my coaching mantra. It only matters if it matters to them. So because you think it's a good idea doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to think it's a good idea. So that's why it's like, when do you say no? When it starts to hurt you financially, when you just feel like I'm just getting taken, you know? If you gave to all the organizations that matter to you, then you just, if you're me, unless you're, you know what I mean, unless you're Warren Buffett or, you know what I mean, or Bill Gates Foundation, you're going to tap out. So I'm really particular in terms of things that matter to me, knowing full well that most individuals and companies have a charitable budget. So, does it fit the culture of the company? Can you convey that to your team? Well, here's why it matters, and I'm laughing again, forgive me, rather than bludgeon them with, well, it matters to me, so it needs to matter to you. Um, so keep in mind, individuals, companies probably have charitable organizations that matter to them as well. So now you're simply moving money. I'm going to give less to this philanthropy endeavor because I'm going to give some to you, and that's the reason why it's like,
Mm.
keep that in mind in a company. Like I said, value has to be. God, I feel like I'm rambling. God, I'm sorry. It's like, but value has to be conveyed. It's not sales. I don't take it as such, but you have to convey value to the person that you're asking. You simply do. Why does it matter? Why should it matter to me? You
Mm.
know,
What do you think? Do you think there's apprehension in those that apprehension in those that are asking. They're asking for charitable contributions. Why is that so? Why is there so much apprehension? Or unless you see it another way, because it's something I've observed. Maybe I have a bias. I've seen.
Mhm. If I heard you
What's so
correctly,
hard
I
about
heard.
asking for
Oh,
charitable
okay.
contribution?
Thank you. All
What do
right,
you
I
think
got
it
you.
is so hard?
Well, because you don't want to take it like there are often really good people at the forefront of these organizations. So there's a sense of I don't want to bother you. Think of it in terms of like building a business relationship where the one person that's trying to establish it feels intimidated or they feel like I don't want to sell them like that old adage and it really is like well you're not but I'm saying I don't want to sell them I don't bother them uh, they'll come to me think about that in building a business it's very similar with giving and philanthropy it's very similar, which is like you've got people that really believe, but they don't know how to convey that message because they're so emotionally in. So the way that I believe that businesses can help in that regard is help tell the story in a way that someone would understand. Um, I had someone describe in detail last week an event that like I said, an organization that this host that it matters to. And I showed up to the event and they told the story as to what it was, like why it was. They painted a picture of a specific situation, and I'm telling you, they got it right in one line. Not a mantra, not a brand, not a, but they gave one example that was personal and emotional and it was like, oh, that's what this is.
Mm.
As soon as I heard that singular line, that again, don't overthink this when it's like, if you're thinking, well, what do I say? Just be direct. Why are you doing it? And this person got really emotional and they gave the story. It was a line or two. And I remember they gave the line, and I'd literally, and now I know I'm repeating myself, that it was like, oh my God. So now I get why we're here. Now I get why this should matter. And the line will vary to every individual that's in the room. So just be clear, like in a business presentation, paint a clear picture, tell a clear story, and do understand number three, it has to matter to the audience. It has to. That's the number one priority. And if you're in a boardroom or giving a speech or sending out emails to or using your Microsoft Teams to be like, okay, I think we should all give to X, you better be really clear in terms of why you think it should matter to someone else, not you decreeing it.
Mm. What do you think the fascination with not fascination, but
Hmm.
the it seems like there's a proliferation or like a growth in nonprofit world.
Oh, right. I think that's kind of where, and I'm laughing, that's where my wall goes up. I love the fact that more people realize that more people need help. I think that's great. I think it's true. But my wall starts to go up when I start to see almost everybody I know is affiliated with a nonprofit. And so if you have a network that's growing, and I'm grateful to say that I am, I don't take that for granted. I have a network that's growing, and everyone has a nonprofit that they're very personally aligned with. It does become a challenge because, in essence, sometimes you feel like you're picking favorites from an individual standpoint, right? So keep that in mind as you are, if you are a CEO or running the finances of a company, that most people have a personal and often multiples of organizations that matter to them personally. And so, again, I'll go back to realize when you are building a business model, a network, growing your corporation through philanthropy, remember again, you're probably moving money unless you're an individual who has an unlimited, or a company with an unlimited revenue stream.
What do you think giving does to the
Mm.
individual?
Oh, I'll use the event from last week, that it feels really powerful when you're like, I help somebody. So it feels really powerful. And this is the reminder that could be literally just showing up. That could be literally just staying through a presentation. That could be giving $1. That could be, you know what I mean? Or your time, or your, like I said, I work with a couple of nonprofits now that I'm crazy about. And I keep going back because you feel like you're making a difference, which I know sounds so cliched. But the truth is, it's that feeling of the actions that I'm taking are resonating somehow. In an action-based world where obviously the feelings aren't facts and you just got to do it anyway and stuff, I get that. I respect it. And I'm not disagreeing with it. All I'm saying is when the opposite occurs, it's a spectacular feeling because now I'm not expecting any sort of reciprocity. I'm like, okay, I'm here. You know, this is great. I'll talk to so and so. And then you have this ridiculously good feeling of, so when you feel something, chances are you will do something. That's why it matters so much. And the actions that you take subsequently, they're the ones that are going to impact you personally, impact your business, impact your teams, impact your organizations. So it's giving yourself the opportunity to be a part of it. The only caveat is when the message is being conveyed, I want you to go here, I want you to do this, I want you to give there. That remember that people probably have walls up, but it's not because they don't like giving, or they don't like kids, or they don't like people, or they don't like you. That it's none of those things. That is simply a matter of give them a reason to care. Take one additional step. Give them a reason and know that you're doing it.
I found it's easier to give when it impacts me less.
Tell me what you mean.
There's less consequence. The better I'm doing, the easier it is to give. But then paradoxically, the less rewarding it is for me.
Well, yeah, because you're just literally moving money around, right? Like, oh, here you go.
So
Here.
there's
All
this pain.
right.
There's a pain.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
is it giving without the pain? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting. Almost philosophically, it's at
Oh,
some
that's a
level,
good point.
maybe it's taking without the pain.
That's a
Because I
that's a real
have
good point.
an inherent, I mean, I just thought of this like right now from this
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Yeah.
There is you know there are always going to be things that come back to us
Mm-hmm.
if we're paying attention,
Mm-hmm.
if we're open or right,
Always.
we're ready to receive.
Always.
And I'm trying to figure out where's the pain, how much pain can I
Mm-hmm.
withstand.
And how selfless can you become if this is a case? And think of all the people that are transitioning professionally, or and all that stuff, and they're still being asked, okay, don't forget April is giving month, and oh, today is giving day, to oh, and tomorrow is, don't forget, we're doing the bike-a-thon, oh, and then Thursday, it's there is pain involved. What you don't want, though, I would think, from a, is people to become jaded. Like, yeah, whatever. And that's the risk. This is why in my heart, I believe one of the reasons that organizations, nonprofits do succeed is that they remember at the core, yes, it's all about the humanity, and not or, and it is actually a business, and treat it as such.
Mm.
Treat it like a business. Treat it like the fact that just because you care doesn't mean I have to. So give somebody a reason to care. And I gave that example. As soon as that person gave the example last Thursday, a singular line, I cared. I can't, all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay. Not even understand. Oh, I can feel that. I get it. And so this need to help here. I need to literally, I need to help. And so that's how it doesn't, you don't have to kill yourself. You just have to know that that matters. I need to know, and this, I'll be very specific. Hey, Jay, not do you want to, do you get it? It's more, what can I do to offer value here? What can I do to demonstrate? What would you like to see? It's bring somebody into the equation. That's all. When you're able, bring them in, and then they get the chance to see, and then hopefully the alliance continues to build, and the philanthropy works all around.
What do you say to the listener that's thinking, I don't give a shit about it. I thought this was a business culture podcast. The hell are these two
Well,
wasting
first
their
off,
time?
I'm with you. For those listeners, I get it because I get the wall that I talked about, and the wall comes off sometimes from simply over giving. But in an organization, from a culture perspective, go even to the most basic, which is you will get something as a result. You will feel something. That is, like I said, almost a universal truth. You want to make your day a little bit better, try giving a little bit. Help a colleague. If that feels like such a stretch to you, that's fine. Go help a colleague. Go help someone. And remember the fact that most often you're going to feel a little bit differently. And then I'm going to go back to the second point, which is number 2, that sense of you only do something when you feel something. That's how it is. And I am going to disagree with those. Well, I just take action anyway. And it's like, well, a lot of people don't. So if you are looking to up the ante in an organization, help them to feel something. Don't badger them. Don't bludgeon them. Don't besiege them with opportunity. Just help them, right? Because ultimately, if you're feeling good about something in an organization or the giving part or whatever, you'll do more. You'll do more because people are, in general, business people are, if I'm feeling appreciated in any way, it's a matter of, it's appreciating it's appreciating people. So for those listening, to steal your line, and I love that, if they don't, I don't give a shit about it, right? Well, you want to at least act as a team player without being led. Find something, take the initiative, learn a little bit more. And as I said, the selfish part is you will get something from it. And probably it'll be something good, and it's certainly not going to get you promoted. But hey, say you go to an event, and this is a drag, and it's a Thursday night, and I don't feel like it. I'm like that constantly with events. And then you show up and you meet a bunch of people that are cool and productive and nice and can help. And so that hour, 2 hours, whatever, right? And then you got what, 20 people that you didn't have a relationship with that now you do. And so it's beautiful. So if you don't care about that, do you care about growing your organization? Do you care about growing your network? Do you care about aligning with other like-minded people? Well, then you might care about that. Show up at something.
I wrote down to give charitably, you must give value in business. And in business, this is what I mean.
Yeah.
If I'm taking from my customers where they're getting less value than I'm getting,
right?
So I get the dollar and they're getting less than $1 in value. What are the odds that I have a surplus of spirit, of feeling, of money eventually, right? Because eventually they're not going to come back. So I think if I'm giving value,
you'll give it back.
There's a connection with giving charitably or something.
Absolutely. 1000%. I'll use an example of an organization that I work with. So I've been volunteering, and talk about funny how time flies. So I've been volunteering with them since 2015. Uh,
Wow.
only went back to like a sequence of events to realize that it started in 2015. So I was just showing up. Uh, first time I showed up for them, and for that organization, I showed up because I liked one of them was a local celebrity. And another was a buddy of mine who worked for a radio network. Hey, do you want to show up at this? We're all running this event. Blah blah blah. Well, I hadn't never run a long distance event before, and but honest to God, here's the deep subliminal reason I showed up. Well, he's hot and he's hot, and so great, I'm in, and that was it. What was my value? Those two hot dudes were running as well too, so I'm all in, and this is great. Where I felt the real connection was when someone was actually talking to me as to why it mattered to them after the run.
Wow.
I don't talk a lot during a run, and if you ever saw me run, you'd understand why.
Ah,
The paramedics one all ask me if I'm okay, but it's like, but at the end, we're actually talking, and then I get the message why it matters to them, and I got something and felt something, and then did something. 9 years later, I am doing a substantial amount of work with them because the organization matters. I did the homework, but just help somebody to care and don't overthink it. That's, it's right. I mean, it's, you don't have to overthink this, but just do a little legwork, which is the value that you give back to somebody. You know, you give value back, you'll get it more, and it absolutely works. And I do believe with nonprofits, when they see that, because there's a lot of organizations that do that, by the way, when they see that, that's how they're able to succeed.
Hmm.
They give value. They make you feel good, you know?
Hmm. In closing,
Yeah.
um, someone that's never contributed to
Mhm.
anything,
Right.
they're they have a lot of good reasons why they should.
Right.
Your advice to them.
Yeah. Um, think about what matters to you. Just think about what matters to you. Like, you might be so buried in other things, and that's real and legit. That, you know what I mean? Personal stuff, business stuff, time, problem, whatever. I get it. Finances, I get that. But think about what matters to you. And that old adage, taking one step to make someone else's life a little better, ultimately is going to make your life better. So, what could be one step that you could take to make someone's life a little bit better? And really go to the baby step route. Suggesting to somebody who has the mindset that you just said, and that's real, with some people that I've encountered in my life, that's very real. That it's like asking them to do a lot of deep dive research. They're not. But I'm just saying, take a baby step. Something's probably matters to you. How, oh God, I wish somebody could. Whatever the answer, where you finish the sentence, I wish somebody could. Go look it up. See if they matter. See if you can volunteer. See if you could show up. I know a ton of people that are giving time. They're not giving money, but they're giving time. They're showing up, giving time. Maybe you give an hour a week to somebody to get your mind rolling. You know what I mean? In the mindset that ain't a bad idea. Show up and help somebody. Because when you realize how much it helps you, you'll do more. Everybody does. That's all. You just have to care and get out of that mindset that you can't make a difference, because you can.
I just had another thought.
Oh, what?
I don't want to give time because I don't want to be an employee.
Oh, but I got you. So, but if you are an entrepreneur and you get to choose where you invest your time, that's not an employee. You are choosing to be there rather than somebody saying be here at 4 p.m. That's an employee. It's you saying, you know what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to put it in my calendar, because that's a boss move. Bosses do that. And rather than being told, you make the call, which is why make it sounds directing, make it matter to you. Just make it matter to you a little bit. It's a little bit selfish, but it's like if you put on the business cap of, I want to make the world a better place. I want to make business a better place. How can I, what's one thing I could do? I don't know. Pick anything and just make it
Mm.
easy. And you schedule the time because you're the boss. You ain't an employee. You're the boss. So you're scheduling the time. You come and go as you please. Meaning, hey, if I schedule at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I'm out of here. Uh, they ain't telling me what to do. Great. Then give an hour. See what it feels like. I've never in my life had a philanthropic experience where I actually cared that didn't make me feel great after it was done. And by great, meaning I want to do more. I want to donate funds. I want to donate more time. I want to let more people know. And that is, I said, you just got to give them the reason to care and allow them the process, like you did with me. Hey, just show up. Just come to the event. I was told I was the best dressed person there. I was a little overdressed that night.
That's amazing.
I was dressed like an
John,
MC. I misread. I thought it read dressed to impress and all that stuff. And I come in the tux. But it was great. I was with a bunch of people. I loved them all. You know what I mean? A bunch of new people, some old friends, family was there, and I didn't even know they were coming. You know what I
wow.
mean? So that none of that would have happened if you weren't like, you know what? It ain't gonna kill me. It's just not gonna kill me to show up to this thing. It just won't. So why don't you? Oh, and this guy who's a friend of mine, it matters to him. So what the hell? I'll just give it an hour or two and see where it goes. I can always Irish goodbye if I wanna, and didn't, and then didn't. So I'm just saying it's like when somebody gives a CEO gives people the time or the ability to care, or most importantly, a reason to care that's theirs, not yours, they'll do it. And when you do, I'm just going to say I've never had an experience when I've given my time, my money, my resources, my network, whatever. I've never had a time where I didn't feel good as a result. Never.
John, I appreciate you sharing these thoughts with our audience to
Absolutely.
soften their heart, challenge their coffers.
They're hardcore.
Yeah, soften them and challenge
Yeah,
the coffers and maybe wake some people up out of
exactly.
their slumber.
Right. It's let somebody help somebody.
And we'll have to do one again on this topic as it evolves. And
Yep.
no, I appreciate you coming back and the spirit of giving that we're sharing with our audience. And if you're listening to this, make sure you follow John, listen to his podcast, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.
Jay, thank you.